Welcome, everybody, to Mom Street USA. My name is Jackie, aka Wishes Mama. And for this episode, you are in for a wonderful treat because it is Stevie's very first episode with us. So I am joined by my real life bestie of over 15 years. Stevie is with me for this hub episode. And we are going to be talking about something that is just kind of lives rent free, I feel like, in her brain, and that is tips from a former cast member, which she is. So really excited to bring you guys this information today. Stevie, how are you doing for your how you feeling for your first episode?
I'm great. I'm very excited. I love sharing Disney stories and I love talking to you.
Yes.
So I'm just really excited to join the fam.
Yeah, so fun. So if you have been with us all along, maybe you might have missed. We did a shift for 2025. So we said see you later to Kate as she kind of took a step back to focus on family and writing. And we said hello to some new friends here for Mom Street for our hub episodes, which are episodes where we bring in some extra co-host friends. So you already heard from our good friends Duck and Jess. They have had their first episode. So now it's Stevie's turn. So we're excited to officially welcome her to Mom Street USA and hear what she has to share. So, Stevie, without further ado, I will let you kind of give us an intro to this topic because I feel like it's needed.
Sure. So I worked for Walt Disney World from 2013 to 2016. I started my time with the company on the Disney College program. I started that program when I was a senior in college, right as I graduated, and I went down the summer after I graduated. So I lucked out that I didn't need to go back and complete any coursework. But I was an attractions cast member, and I started in Epcot at Innoventions. I was a presenter and then I was a seasonal cast member. Then I moved down permanently and was eventually full time, part time, then full time. I was not getting enough hours at Epcot and I transferred to Hollywood Studios and I worked at the Great Movie Ride. I am aware that both of those locations are no longer with us. It is very sad to
R.I.P.
me. No one is more sad than I am. Um, but if you're unfamiliar with either of those attractions, they both require memorizing lengthy scripts and then performing them. So, Interventions in Epcot was what Disney likes to call an edutainment venue. So, it's both educational and entertaining. So, that meant that I was a, um, excuse me, um, I hosted a game show called Where's the Fire, where um, guests were contestants to learn about fire safety and compete against one another. And I was a presenter for a venue called Habit Heroes, where guests got to learn how to be superheroes and learn about healthy habits that they can implement in their lives. And that was tied to an app where you could unlock stories in a comic book that actually tied you into the Marvel universe. So I like to joke that I'm canonically a Marvel character because
Absolutely.
I was a trainer
Absolutely.
for heroes, of course. Um, and the Great Movie Ride was where the Mickey's Runaway Railway used to be, or is now. You know what I mean.
Switch that, reverse it. You guys got it.
The Great Movie Ride is where Mickey's Runaway Railway is now. It is a slow-moving tram ride. It was a slow-moving tram ride that put you in the middle of Hollywood scenes and put you in the middle of the action. Though your show was going to get interrupted by an antagonist, but then the presenter, the tour guide, got to hop in and save the day. And I loved working at both of those places dearly, and I miss it all the time.
Yeah, I have to say that Great Movie Ride. I grew to love it mostly because you worked there and I would always come and visit you, or we would always go together and like visit all your friends. But also my very first trip as like a little 4-year-old, the only thing I remember from that trip is being terrified and scarred for life that our tour guide got taken in the Great Movie Ride, and I sobbed hysterically the entire rest of the ride until they came back.
A very, very common reaction. It's I think that I was one of those kids. I don't have a memory of being
Yep.
on Great Movie Ride, but I was informed that I was a child that rode Great Movie Ride, but I don't have any memory of it. I think that I was on the version where the cowboy took over for the tour guide because there's fire in that sequence. And I vaguely do remember fire. And I think fire is the thing that scares the kids the most because it's intense. Like you can feel the heat of the fire in that scene. And part of that is what makes it so cool.
Right.
But it is definitely very intense. But yeah, I loved living there. There's so much fun Disney lore at both of those locations. And I
Yeah.
learned so much about Disney in general from my coworkers too at both of those locations.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things where being a cast member at Disney, like, the majority of the time, like, yes, it's hard work, and yes, you are dealing with guests all the time, especially if you are an on-stage cast member that is dealing with those guests, right, face to face, but most of the time, I feel like I hear good stories about people who work down at the parks, it's always got its ups and downs just like any other job does, but I feel
Right.
like overall, pretty good experiences.
Well, and the Great Movie Ride gave me a whole new appreciation for classic Hollywood cinema. Like I already loved old movies, I loved musicals, but when I worked at the ride, I made a point to go back and watch the movies that were featured on the ride just
Yeah,
because that way I became a better cast member because I knew more trivia about the ride. I knew how to explain it if we got stopped. I could give extra fun facts and things that I knew. And it has definitely transferred past my time working at that ride. I've always loved trivia, but
yeah,
just like going and seeing and watching lots of old movies is just so
yeah.
great.
I feel like at some point in time, we're gonna need to do, like, a behind the scenes episode on, like, what it's like to be a cast member that has to, like, memorize a script and recite it and do that in your day to day, every day, like, just that whole process. I feel like people would be interested to hear about that, so make note of that, and I will too, because I feel like that would be
I
a fun
am
look at
writing
you and
it
do a
down right
sticky
now.
note. I think that would be fun to hear because there are so many rides that are like that, right?
Yes.
Um, even that still exist now, think of things like the Safari, they've got a script that they pull from whenever they do those shows, there are others, but I think, it would be interesting to hear about. So but that's not the point of today. The point of today, focus, is
The point
that
of today is that I learned all kinds of things about how I most enjoy visiting the Disney parks after being a cast member. And
yes,
some of that was from seeing the behind the scenes of things. And some of that was just from going to the parks all the time during my time off that
right.
I ended up being a visitor hundreds of times. And that gave me my own preferences and strategies for doing different things. And it gives you time to notice things when you spend so much time in the park. And I transferred that to everybody that I ever went to the parks with, like Jackie. And now we're going to share some of that with you guys too.
Yes, I'm excited. So let's get started. Let's jump into this list. What is your first tip? Now, granted, these are in no particular order. These are just general tips that Stevie has come up with. So keep that in mind. But what are we starting with on your list here?
My first tip is a little on the nose, but I would be remiss to all of the current cast members if I did not mention this as my first tip. And my first tip is to listen to cast members. I The main reason, there are two reasons. The main reason being safety reasons. The cast members have your safety in mind. They want what's best for you. They want to make your day as magical as possible. And that involves keeping you safe. However, the lesser known reason to listen to cast members is that you never know when they're looking for somebody to make magic for. So I want to preface this by saying, like, I don't think that you should ever expect a cast member to make magic for you, but it is generally more fun in the parks if you lean into whatever kind of magic and environment the cast member is trying to create. If you shed your sense of disbelief and lean into whatever bit they're trying to do. So at Great Movie Ride, we had this task that we would pull called the Junior Tour Guide. And it was a magical moment that was specific to our attraction. So cast members on the ride, when we were doing our spiel on the vehicle, we had gray blazers that we would wear, and we had a mini version of this gray blazer.
I'm
And
so
so
sad my kids will never
I
get to do
know
it.
my heart breaks all the time that I will not get to go on with them and point out all of the things and teach them how to not be scared and all of the hidden Mickeys that were on the ride. I cry about it regularly. I cried about it 2 days ago. It's fine. We don't need to talk about it. Anyways, in the computer system at Movie Ride, you could pull a task that said to like do this magical moment. It was something that like made sure that like we always had time to stop and make magic for guests, which I think is a
Love
really
that.
cool thing. And it totally makes sense that like it is programmed somewhere in how cast members run their day. You just don't think about it because it feels really organic if it's happening to you. But everybody did this task a little differently. It really just revolved around allowing a child to wear the coat if they wanted to. Sometimes cast members would let a kid help load people into the vehicles and like help do our job and like give them a tour of what the set looked like right when the vehicles would take off. But very consistently, there were sometimes we would have trouble finding somebody who was interested in doing that. And not that like
Mhm.
we would ask and somebody would say no, but sometimes nobody would make eye contact with you. And I get it. We're all anxious people. Not everybody wants to make eye contact and say hi all the time. But like when you're saying hi and you just get ignored, it's a little sad sometimes.
Yeah.
And especially when you're trying to make magic for somebody.
Right.
And they before I was a cast member, it's something that I think would have surprised me that it happened at all, that anybody that would be something that you had difficulty doing. And then once I saw
Right.
things from the other side, I was just like, oh, I get it now. And so you learn to kind of like look for people who wanted to lean into the magic. And so if you kind of keep an open mind and are noticing things and looking around, cast members are looking for people like you to engage with, even if it's not for a magical moment, even if it's just like they're telling jokes and they want to see if somebody wants to hear the joke they're trying to tell.
Yeah, and I feel like that especially applies honestly to like adult visitors to an extent. Like
Yeah.
obviously the kids, right? A lot of the kids are already in the magic, they're already in the moment, they're going to be looking and listening. But I feel like some of them my favorite moments that I've had have been, like, as an adult without kids when I've gone to the parks, like, character meet and greets and stuff, like, do you remember I don't remember which trip it was that I came down to visit you, but we were walking around Magic Kingdom in Fantasyland, and we came across, the fairy godmother doing a meet and greet, and we took
Yes.
that amazing okay, so fairy godmother is a little bit special because she kind of exists in all of the Disney realms, so, like, a lot of the characters don't always know about other characters that exist in different Disney areas, right? But Fairy Godmother is kind of above that, and she can kind of see all of the things as well as present day, and I very distinctly remember us going to, like, wait in her meet and greet line because 'cause we're like, "Oh, that's such a fun character," like and we were just, like, again, open to, like, a fun moment, and she took so many fun selfies with us, and I remember her being like, "Okay, girls, we're gonna do the duck lips," because at the time, that was, like, the thing, right? And so I have this really great selfie of all of us, like, in there with fairy godmother in there. So it's like, even just little things like that, if you're open to it and you're open to, like, just enjoying the magic and having a good time can make not only a fun moment for you, but, like, make the cast members' day too.
Absolutely. And I have moments like that where I was the cast member that I was just excited that somebody else was excited with me. I can
Yes.
remember being in a queue line where I was helping sort people into different lines. And it was towards the end of the night, and a dad came through at the end of his party, and he came up and he fist bumped me. And afterwards, I just went, la 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 la, like because Big Hero 6 had been out for like a little bit of time. And it became clear after his reaction that he was waiting for another cast member to do this.
Love
And I just
that.
was like, because I'm always just going to lean into it. And I went, blah, blah, blah. And he went running to the rest of his family and goes, she did it.
That's awesome.
And so it's just really fun when you can have those moments and you're open to like being silly with other people. It
Yeah.
was one of my favorite things as a guest too. When the Citizens of Hollywood still existed in Hollywood studios, we were kind of in character talking about the fact that we worked at the Great Movie Ride and that everybody gets confused about what it is. Nobody necessarily knows what the building is for. And I can remember speaking to the mayor of the Citizens of Hollywood and asking that, like, we need to do something about it. You're the mayor. You should fix this. And leaning into like the magic and the story of that. And he said that he was going to put a food cart in like where the ticket stand was. And I was like, that's a really great idea. Like, I want that now too. And I came back a couple of months later and I saw him and I was like, there's no food part.
Where's my
And
food
where is
cart?
it? He said that there was going to be, and he remembered me and he was like, I did say that, didn't I? And I was like, how are you going to get reelected if you don't deliver on your promises? It was so much fun to just kind of lean into that. And on the other like safety side, I at one point I went to Midway Mania with somebody in my party that was using a wheelchair, and she did not need it all the time. It was just kind of a throughout the day, if she needed to be able to sit, we could push her in the wheelchair too. And so we had it through the queue because at Midway Mania, you can actually take the wheelchair through the whole queue, which is great and so wonderfully accessible. And when we got up to the ride, the person in my party described that they could transfer and they didn't need to stay in it. And the cast members were training at the time. They were like, actually, is it all right if you guys stay in it so we get the practice and that way she can see what that looks like? And we're like, yeah, of course. And so it was very clear that they'd been waiting for somebody to be able to do that so that way they could practice. And we didn't mind, like it didn't take any extra time. And so it just there are so many different reasons where you never know how you can help somebody out or how it, can make everybody's days easier just by, listening. So it's a really simple tip, but it is close to my heart as a former CM. And all of my friends that are current CMs, I know appreciate any time that they get to make magic like that for guests.
And I think something fun that, we as guests can do is if you have a cast member that does make an extra special magical moment for you, like be sure to acknowledge that, not only verbally to them and saying like, thank you, that was so fun, or, whatever it may be, but also going on your app or going to guest services to put in that cast compliment for them. Those cast compliments are super helpful for the CMs if they're looking for a transfer or they're trying to get a promotion or all sorts of different ways, right? Because they do go in their file, which is what you want. I will also mention that you can do that for characters as well. If you have a really great interaction with Fairy Godmother, you can put that in the app and it will find its way back to Fairy Godmother.
It also just can make a cast member's day to see that somebody noticed something that they did. I say that personally because like sometimes you just get a little down or you're just like having a not great day. It rained on your way into work and then your costume's all wet and you've got to and then you come in and you find that somebody like was really touched by something that you did. It would turn my whole week around if somebody left something like that. So that's my other reason.
Absolutely. I love that. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I did see something in the comments that I wanted to address. Somebody asked whether or not there was a quota for magical moments. And to my knowledge, there is not. There's no like minimum or maximum. It's something that's in the system, something that we can continue to do like after the task has been pulled, as long as it's like available. If there's like any required pieces, like with movie ride with the tour guide jacket, like we couldn't do it again if somebody else was using the jacket. We only had so many of them. But I did want to say that it's not, there's no nobody's graded on whether or not it happens.
That's fair. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. So it's an interesting question.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that I addressed that.
Yeah, totally fair.
Moving on, my second piece of advice is something that I learned from just being a guest regularly and disliking carrying things. So I would highly recommend that you do the bulk of your shopping on your way out of the park so that you have less to carry.
Yeah, I love this one and I am a fan of this one. But do keep in mind that some of the shops will stay open if you're going all the way to park close, good for you. But some of the shops will stay open past park open, but not all of them do. For example, like in Epcot, your creations is going to stay open past park close, but like I think almost all of the like World Showcase shops do not. So make sure you're looking at hours and things like that. If there are certain shops you want to go to and you're planning to do it at the end of the night, make sure you don't miss that cutoff closing time.
I will say that I do make exceptions for attraction specific merch. So like if you are back by like Tiana's and Big Thunder Mountain in Magic Kingdom, like that's a long haul. Like if you're in Tomorrowland to go back over there. And if you don't think that you're going to be back in that area of the park again, those are different rules. There's an exception to every good rule. And that is one of them. But used to work at the package pickup area in studios at one point when I was injured. And that was my secret hot tip then, because not enough people knew about it, that you could buy something in a shop and then have it sent to the front of the park and you wouldn't have to worry about it and you could just pick it up as you were leaving. Hopefully one day Disney brings that back, because I think that it was absolutely glorious. You can also have things shipped home, which was ideal when we built droids in Galaxy's Edge, and we could have it shipped back we took it back to our resort, and
Yes.
they shipped it home from there. And it was lovely that we did not have to try and fit those in a suitcase.
Yeah, and I will mention that usually Droid Depot will ship both lightsabers and droids if you're in the park and you wanna ship them, but, like, if your kiddo makes a droid and wants to play with it that day, like, you may wanna wait until you get back to your resort and ask them to ship from there, so that's just something to keep in mind. I also got a comment in my live chat that lockers are really great for that reason, and yeah, absolutely. If you're getting, like, especially if you're getting, like, that ride specific merch or specific merch from a certain shop that you know you're not gonna be back to, like, getting a locker is a great idea for that.
I will add that even if you're an adult that just wants to play with your droid in
Also,
the park, you're not supposed to like have it on the ground and like maneuver it at that point in time. But when my husband and I were there, we wanted to do a photo shoot with our droids and take photos. And it was great because I could use that in my character interactions too, because I hadn't named my droid. And so I was asking Ray for her opinion and I asked Fennec for her opinion. And Fennec was just like, what are you going to be doing? Are you going to be smuggling anything? Like, and just like, it was a great interaction. It was a great thing to have. Like, if you get anxious about what to say to characters, having something in your hand like a droid to be able to show them, like, hey, like, and a question, like, do you have any names for this droid? It's a great way to facilitate conversation.
yeah. I do think in Hollywood Studios, there is a little section kind of right outside Droid Depot near where, like, Chewie and Rey sometimes hang out in the like, where the ships are being fixed, that they have, like, a little space where, like, it's safe to, like, maneuver your droid
Mm,
around, where they have, like, a little padded area. So keep that in mind and look out for that if you, like, wanna give it a test run, you know?
good call. My third tip is specific for snack breaks. If you know when you're waiting in line for something that when you get off of the ride that you're going to want to take a snack break, I highly recommend looking for other outdoor experiences nearby that you could enjoy while you're eating your snacks. So my favorite example of this is in Epcot and having my snacks wherever the janitors are going to be that day, because they're lots of fun, they're high energy, and they get kids in the crowd involved too. And so it's really fun to just kind of hang out and enjoy the vibes for that. When I worked in Epcot, standing and greeting at that back door wherever they were performing was always one of my favorite things to do. Um, every day is Junior Janitor Day, so there's always going to be a good time that you have while you're hanging out there. But there's lots of places that are like that. There are a lot of performers that wander around throughout Animal Kingdom. The Dapper Dans on Main Street. I don't remember the name of the piano guy if he has a specific name, but there's a piano outside of Casey's Corner. But he's also great to see and hear while you're snacking.
I know Grayson and Neil are both two of the piano players at Casey's Corner that play out there, so
I thought you
anytime
might
you
know.
yeah, anytime you catch any of them, it's a good time. The show in Africa is one of my favorite. There's not a ton of shade right there where they have, like, the drummers and stuff that come out on that little stage in Africa at Animal Kingdom, but that's one of my favorites, and the new Encanto show that they have at Epcot, with that stage is a good area. Again, not a ton of shade, but, like, it's still if you're close enough to, like, hear, you're in a good spot.
That's the same thing for Avengers Campus in Disneyland California Adventure.
Mhm.
I that is one of my favorite places to just sit and hang out because they've got I love Marvel, and so getting to see all of the different things that happen in that area. But that's another one where it's hard to find shade.
Yeah.
But it's a good time, and in my opinion, well worth it, especially if you have sunscreen.
Right. Well, and I get, like, the lack of shade because, like, sight lines, you wanna be able to see the stages
Yeah,
and the things
yeah.
that are happening, so, like, it's okay. Okay, are we ready to move on to number 4?
Yes.
Okay.
My fourth tip is to expect rain in Florida. This is a
So
Florida
true.
specific tip. And if you plan for rain, your day will never be ruined by rain. So what this looked like for us was frequently intentionally taking midday breaks or naps. Even as adults, I would be napping whenever the rain would happen. But if you are not the napping or break type, planning a show that takes a while or a ride that is covered that has a longer wait, um, something that allows you to be flexible is ideal, and someplace that you're not caught in something to try and wait it out, because there are some places that they can't have lots of people standing and congregating for safety reasons, and you've just got to kind of figure it out as you go. But if you know that it's going to rain and expect it around 3 o'clock every day, then you can plan accordingly. And I personally have done back-to-back viewings of Hall of Presidents, and I just circled around a couple different times until the rain was done. And
Yeah.
I had a great time because all of those animatronics do different things while the other presidents are talking. Like one of the presidents checks his watch in the middle of it. And it's a good time, and you never know what you'll notice by writing things
Yeah.
again.
I will mention, the exit cues are typically not a great place to do that. So Stevie was talking about, like, safety issues. Like, unfortunately, like, if you go into a ride, it's not raining, you come out, it is raining, you kinda just gotta grin and bear it. Grab your poncho, get your umbrella, whatever it is that you got prepared, because again, plan for rain. But just keep in mind that congregating at, like, exit cues is not great. But something that I would suggest is, especially if you're going to Florida during the summer months, it will rain. It just will. You may get lucky and not every day will it rain on your trip, but chances are good it will rain again around that 2, 3, 4 o'clock. So, if you're someone that is flexible in your eating habits, if you wanna plan, like, and you're doing table service, if you wanna plan a table service for 3 p.m., that might be a really good idea, depending on, your budget and where you're gonna what parks you're gonna be and what food you like and all those types of things. But that is a really good way, because then you have a guaranteed spot to get away, and you can sit and eat and just, like, enjoy yourself while it's pouring outside.
I think the best place in all of the parks that I've been to so far for doing that is specifically the building that houses Soarin' and Livin' with the Land. And I cannot remember the name of the restaurant in there, but you've got all kinds of rides that you can wait in and food to eat. And you could just hang out in there for a couple hours and you
They
wouldn't even know that
have
it's raining outside.
Yeah, Garden Grill is in there, and then is it
Right.
Sunshine Seasons, I think is the other one that's in there?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So, that's like the, like, more cafeteria style one. Garden Grill is like a character meet and greet table service, you need the reservation, but there's lots of grab and go food at I'm pretty sure it's Sunshine Seasons is the name of that one inside the Land Pavilion.
My fifth tip is to do things more than once, but change how you do it. So there's nothing wrong with having a favorite thing that you love doing and you want to do it over and over again. But my suggestion is to find a new perspective for how you do it. So my husband and I love Muppet Vision 3D, and we will go see it multiple times in a single day. But we always try to sit in a different position when we see it because you notice different things, especially when there's animatronics or other features aside from whatever is happening on screen. So, like if you're close to the screen, it puts you right in the middle of the action. But at Muppet Vision, if you're over to the right of the screen, you can be closer to Statler and Waldorf. If you're at PhilharMagic at the very back of the theater, there's an animatronic feature towards the end of the show that you can get to see really closely. And so you never know what kinds of things you'll discover just by sitting somewhere else. And it's the same thing on rides too. Snow White Mine Train, Snow White Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. I could say the whole thing. I got this. Is slightly more intense in the back than it is in the front, which is why I always ride it in the front because I've learned this. But animatronics also have a longer sequence programmed into them from when you ride by. So, like when you are on Mine Train and you ride past Snow White, she's still dancing and doing things longer than the length of time that it takes you to ride by. So I love getting to sit in different perspectives and getting to see different angles of all of the animatronics.
Yeah, and I like looking not where they want you to look, right? So, like,
Yes.
if they're trying to bring your attention to one specific area, it's like, What's going on over here? What's going on over here? Especially if it's something that you love and you've done multiple times already to, like, get the full experience, right? But, like, looking off to the side and seeing what's going on, you catch a lot of fun things that way. And some of the rides that I like to sit in different locations, Big Thunder Mountain is one. Kinda like you were talking about with Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. It is vastly different in the back than it is in the front, so that's a fun one to do. Same with Runaway Railway. So that is one that, like, every seat that you're in, you're gonna see a completely different sequence because they have these longer scenes, and depending on when you're coming through and what angle you're coming through at, you're only seeing a small little area of it. The thing about Runaway Railway that I love is there's these little hidden crabs, and her name is Crustacea, and she's hidden inside every scene. But you have to be in certain seats in each scene to catch her because she only pops up for a quick second and then she's gone. And so, like, if you're in the front, you may miss her because you may be through the scene already before she's even popped up. So, sitting in different areas is super fun. Cosmic Rewind is another one where people like certain seats because of the way you turn and where you are at launch and all that kind of stuff too.
And I will say looking where they don't expect you to look is a great strategy for finding hidden Mickeys. That's
Yes.
my favorite tip for looking for those.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and Abby's saying in my chat, Tiana's. Yeah, front row on Tiana's, you are much more likely to experience the water part of the water ride if you're in the front row. Back row is a little bit safer, but you're still likely gonna get wet. But I always like back row of even some of the slower rides like Small World or Three Caballeros because I can, like, turn around and look behind me and see what's going on, like and what, like, the people in the front of the boat behind me are seeing, I can, like, turn and look and see without, like, staring at other people's faces that are sitting behind me. So, it's always fun to sit in the back of the boat for that reason too.
That's one of my favorite memories of being on Great Movie Ride when it still existed with you and intentionally going to the very back row so we wouldn't disrupt the tour guide and I could point out all of the hidden things that I
Yeah.
knew about. Because I love looking for that kind of thing and also trying not to disrupt other people when I'm looking for it.
Yeah, and sometimes you can see the scene reset behind you, which is kind of fun to watch. I've done that on Runaway Railway before where it's like, oh, they like, this the change in the scenery happens too. And Kristen's saying in my chat, same thing on Pirates. Yeah, absolutely. Pirates of the Caribbean is another one that's super fun because those scenes are so long with those animatronics that you can catch so many more things if you're able to kind of look around or look behind you.
Absolutely. And that actually leads me to my sixth tip, which is just talking to cast members. Because if you want to know where to look for things, or if there's something cool, if you want to, like, if you've been on a ride a lot and you want to experience it in a different way, asking the cast members that work there, or just cast members in general, about what their favorite things are or any recommendations they have is a great way to get a new experience out of your trip. It is one of my favorite things to do is to just pick their brains, especially for character meet and greets as well,
Yeah.
because sometimes the character attendants can help facilitate that interaction too. Like if you start to bond with them about something. My mom and I met Doug and Russell at one point, and we were bonding with the character attendant. And I had my hair in a braid, and she was asking me questions about the braid. And then when she introduced me, we were talking about my braid with Doug and Russell, and they were like,
Love that.
"It's so cool. We're gonna keep her. She can't leave. She's staying. We want her." And so
I
it's
love
just
that.
lots of fun. But
Yeah,
when
there's such a wealth of knowledge, cast members, right? Like, they just and even if they're new, like, I feel like no matter how long they've been at the company, there's something that they have to share that is interesting or different or unique to them.
Absolutely. Asking for people's favorite viewing locations for different shows is also one of my favorite things to do because, especially cast members that work nearby, they end up seeing it from different places, especially showkeeping or custodial cast members.
Yeah.
They're all over the park and they're seeing lots of different things from different angles all the time. And they've definitely, I promise you, every cast member's got opinions that they love talking about to anybody that'll listen. Just look for the ones that aren't in a hurry or aren't in a position that looks like they're directing traffic or
Right.
is something safety critical.
Yeah, not all cast members are unfortunately, they're not gonna be able to always take the time to devote their full attention to you if they are in a role that is needed for safety, I'm sure they will talk to you quickly and then say, "I'm really sorry, I can't talk right now." Because they want to. Believe me, they want to. They just maybe can't always.
Yes, my favorite memory of that specifically. I love web slingers in California Adventure. And there was a cast member towards the end of pre-show that was sweeping and doing other like tidying kind of things and just hanging out. And I was like, hey, like, do the lockers that are in this queue area like open up? Because if you're unfamiliar with the ride, the lockers in web slingers have different characters like attached to them. Like those lockers belong to those in universe characters. So
Oh,
like
that's
Spider-Man has his
fun.
own locker. And they're all themed like their characters. And there are actual working locks on the top, but like
Oh,
you
that's
can't
cool.
open them, but like you can still like spin them. And
Mhm.
it is so cool. And I loved looking at all of it. And I was just like, hey, do these actually open? Like, is there some kind of like secret password that I found that I could find somewhere in the wall that would then open these and I could see something cool? And she was like, no. But and then explained that there's a storyline that happens throughout the ride. And she was pointing out all of her favorite things to me. And I was like, you are the best. This is exactly what I was looking for. And so there's always lore to every single ride that you go on. And it's so much fun to get to learn those kinds of things that they usually learn in training.
Yeah, one of my things that I actually haven't done, but I witnessed, my good friend Kirk at Walrus Carp with one of his live streams. He was in Galaxy's Edge in the is it the creature shop, I think is what they call it, inside the marketplace where they have all the, like, plushies and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And he just got to talking to one of the cast members in there, and they started pointing out, like, all this hidden stuff along the top and, like, had this little guide that like, to everything, and it was like, wow, Disney goes all out with all of these details, right? Imagineers are just amazingly creative. So to hear stuff like that, and then to hear like Kate and Kirk on their Distery podcast do a lot of like queue walkthroughs, and they go through every inch of the queue and they point out all these different things. Their series on the Jungle Cruise sticks out to me because they pointed out all of the different details that you can follow as you walk through that queue. So there's so much to see. And so much to kind of make a note to inquire about later when you find a cast member that might be able to help you. And also, like, if you hear stuff like that, then you can share it with other people, and that just spreads the magic, and I just love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My seventh tip is about monitoring how much time you have left when you're in line. So Disney does a great job of designing queues so that way you're entertained to some extent while you're waiting in a really long line. There's lots of stuff to look at. Sometimes there are games. But if you don't remember when you got in the line to time the wait time and how long you've spent in the line, there is a way to tell once you get to a certain point in the line. So there on the cast member side of things, there's a position we call the merge position. And this is the point in the line where the fast pass or lightning lane guests merge with the standby guests and you come together. This point usually means that you have less than 15 minutes left of your wait. So if you can spot the merge point, you'll know that at that point in the line is when you'll have less than 15 minutes till you get to pre-show or till you board. And this is my favorite tip for trying to figure out where we are in line, how many more switchbacks we have to go through, and what other kind of waiting we have to do. Because I can just look for wherever merge is, and that'll cue me in into where we
Yes.
are.
I love this tip, and it never occurred to me until I saw it on your notes, and I was like, "That is so smart." Because it's true, right? If you lose track and you're like, now granted this won't help you if you're out further in the queue and you can't see the merge point, unfortunately, but like if you think you're getting to the end and you're like, okay, we can't have too much longer, if you can kind of look ahead and spot where that merge point is super helpful.
Well, and there are other times where the line moves much faster than I expect, and I'm just like, "Oh, wow, we're already at the merge point. Like, look at us go." And I will say there is a strategy to when people go past you and how the cast member merges. I say this because I totally understand that when you are in standby and you are watching, dozens of people walk past you, it can feel really frustrating. It can feel like the cast member has forgotten about you. I promise you, they have not forgotten. There is a mathematical system that not everybody follows depending on how busy the park is, but there is a general guideline and about how many fast pass people or lightning lanes you have to let by before you let the standby line go. And if the park is really busy, that means that there are more lightning lane or fast pass people that have to go by. I don't know if we're technically still using the word fast pass or not, but I can't break the habit.
We're not, but well, and I'd be curious to know if there are any current cast members that work in attractions that are listening that would be willing to share what your current ratio system looks like, because I wonder, with all of the changes to multipass and lightning lanes that have happened over the past 8 years, I wonder what those ratios look like now, because my guess is they're probably vastly different than the ratios that you are working with
Yeah.
because of just availability of those return times. So I'd be really interested to hear what those ratios look like now.
And I will say, at a base level, without going into too much math, the normal level at a regular park day, you will send 4 people in the lightning lane queue by, or fast pass when I worked there, for every 1 standby person. So if you had a family of 4, you should expect to see 16 people in the fast pass line go in front of you. Now, not all the time is there somebody in that line to send in front of you, and lots of people can go by instead. And that ratio increases if the park is busier and if that line is backed up. And for the most part, most locations have a way for that cast member to communicate about how long that line is and what kind of ratio they need to use. That's a fun attractions, like science kind of thing that I love talking about. So if anybody's ever interested about it, feel free to message me.
It's a lot of math, and I don't know that I
Yeah.
could do that in my brain that quickly. And that is something to be said, right? Like, cast members are doing their best. If the parks are crazy packed and they're trying to get the ratio as close to correct as they can, don't start counting how many
Mhm.
people they're letting through. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Just be gracious and patient and smile at the cast member and tell them they're doing a great job.
Yes, please. Merge is one of the most stressful places
Yeah.
that an attractions cast member can get put, because you're interfacing with the people that might be frustrated that a manager told you that this is the merge ratio you have to follow, and it's not fun. Nobody likes to make people wait. It's not a good time for us. But if you are curious about queue math and the way that all of that plays out, there's an excellent video on YouTube called from Defunct Land, about the way queues work and the way that
Yes.
standby and lightning lane affects everything. And it's excellent if you are
Yes.
really interested in that kind of thing. It does a really great job of breaking down what that looks like. So I was recommend that to people that are interested in thinking about that.
Yes, I agree. It's really interesting. Okay, number 8. What do you got for
Number
us for number 8?
Number 8 will sound a little weird, and you've got to hear me out. However, I believe that being on a Disney ride when it breaks down is a special kind of magic. And I think that it's really rare, and I think that it's the closest way to get to being an attractions cast member without actually being employed. And so
Yeah.
let me explain why. So I know that it will probably feel stressful at first, but the cast members and the company have so many procedures to keep you safe if something stops working. And so in my opinion, being on a ride when it gets evac'd is really special because it's almost always for a technical reason. It's not usually for an emergency. It just means that, one of the animatronics is down and they don't want you to have a less than perfect experience. So they cycle everybody out of the ride. But when you get cycled out of the ride, that typically means you get to walk the ride path. And the only people that get to walk the ride path are the people that open the ride and close the ride. And so you're getting to see a bird's eye view to something that people rarely get to see. And it's a really, really rare experience. And when I was working as a cast member, getting to point things out to people and like being like, that's where this hidden Mickey is, or like it helps lower stress level, but it's also just something that I personally think is really cool. It's a really unique video view of the ride that you're never otherwise going to see. And it's a really great way to turn something that might seem negative into a positive.
Yeah, and keep in mind that, like, if you get stopped and they say they're gonna evacuate, like, I understand that that's like, "Oh, man, this really stinks, like, we waited in line and now we're blah, blah, blah." Disney's gonna take care of you, right? 9.9 times out of 10, you are going to get a free lightning lane or some sort of compensation for that. Not always, like, if you are literally at the very end of the ride and they have to evac you, a little bit of a different situation, right? So I won't say every single time, but they're gonna take care of you and help make sure that you then get to try the ride again and have the full experience at that point.
Well, and the other thing that I want to mention, because I just saw somebody post a video on Smuggler's Run of what happens when they have technical issues. They themed the ride around the technical issue. And so on Smuggler's Run, Hondo and Chewie are helping you fly the Millennium Falcon. And so when there was a technical issue, a video popped up on screen of Hondo and Chewie talking about how there's an issue with the Falcon and we have to fix this. And he vamps for several minutes and he just keeps going. And it is incredible. I was so excited that somebody recorded that because that was something that was okay to record. It wasn't like a backstage area or anything. It was something that was part of the ride, but a part of the ride that you only get to see if something else goes wrong. And the idea of Jim Cummings recording all of the audio for Hondo doing all of this is just excellent to me. And it's just so specific and fun and rare, and specifically Disney too. Like not every company cares about what happens when something goes wrong, but Disney still wants to make it feel unique and special. And so like I have like dream rides that I would love to walk the ride path for one day. Rise of the Resistance is one of them because the animatronics on that are so cool.
Right.
Spaceship Earth is another one. I
Oh
don't
my
know. I
gosh.
love Peter Pan, but even if I could see it with the lights on for a second, I just love the way things are designed. And you
Yeah.
can only see that if, you're getting something else goes on and you're getting to see lights. Because I'm not the type of person that would ever shine a flashlight into a scene
Right.
because that disrupts everybody else too. I can just cross my fingers and hope that at some point, they got to turn the lights on to fix
Right.
Tinkerbell for a second, and then they just switch the lights back off, and it's still fine. We're all fine here.
I think I would love to walk Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh because then I could get really close to, like, the scenery and stuff in that one.
Yes.
That would be pretty high on my list. I feel like People Mover would be on my list, but only because I wanna go inside a Space Mountain on that part, and I wanna be able to, like, look down at Space Mountain and see the tracks and stuff. Although that happens with the lights on quite frequently, so, like, that's not as big of a deal because the
Yeah.
lights are on in there more often than one would think. Um
And sometimes something happens on Space Mountain, but you're on People Mover, and so the lights are on in Space Mountain when you go out there in People Mover, and so that's my preference because I don't want to ride Space Mountain in general, and so like that's not on my list of being evac'd off of because I don't like riding that ride at all.
Totally fair, and I will say, kind of, piggybacking off what you said, like, if you do end up going backstage, be kind. Don't record if they ask you to put phones away. Listen to your cast members again, back to the beginning of this whole thing. It's a safety thing, right? Their job is your safety at that point, so, just be helpful to them.
I will add that at one point in Disneyland, we got stopped on Haunted Mansion, and we got stopped in front of the Hatbox Ghost for around 5 minutes.
I
And
love
so
that.
all the lights were off, but I just got to sit there and watch how the Hatbox Ghost like worked. And I was like, this is so cool. I'm so excited that we got stopped because it meant that I just got to stare at this really cool animatronic for a while.
Yeah, I think, Haunted Mansion with the lights on would be insane to
Yes.
be able to go on. Yeah.
I've had
And I
friends that have done the backstage tour for that, and then I
yeah.
rode the ride with them, and I'm just like, "Tell me about everything."
Yeah, tell me all the things I need to know. Yes, exactly. And I did have a question in my chat here from Jules about, like, some of the water rides. So they do evac, if they need to on those. Those are different in the fact that typically you're gonna stay in the boat and they're gonna pull you through.
Mm.
The cast members get to get in their lovely giant galoshes, pants, and boots and wade their way through the water.
They have like a
Um,
shepherd's crook that
yeah,
they use to hook onto the boat to pull it. I've had friends that have talked about that, or they worked at another Adventureland ride and they
yeah.
got called in to help with the evac.
Yeah. Now,
Um,
if you're in a part of that ride where the cast member knows that there is a safe way to get you out of the boat and take you backstage and evac you, then they will. So it really just depends on some of those water rides. Small World, Three Cabs, Navi River, any of those that are pirates that are water rides, Frozen. All of those, depending on where you're at, will depend on what happens with those.
okay. My ninth tip for visiting the Disney parks is to watch evening shows near your next activity. And this specifically applies in Walt Disney World to Magic Kingdom and Epcot, like most specifically because of the way that those shows function. So what I mean by that is like if you know in Epcot that you've got extra magic hours and you want to try and ride Frozen after the evening show, I would highly recommend watching the evening show from Norway because then you're already there. You're positioned to just book it right back there. That is how Jackie and I got on Frozen the very first day that it opened
Yep.
because we were watching the evening show from Norway and we were already in position to go. And it was a very relaxing experience. We didn't have to fight any crowds that were trying to exit. It was lovely.
It was great.
And
I wish they would bring back the old way that they do evening extra magic hours. So,
I know.
unfortunately,
Okay.
at Epcot, that really only applies to deluxe guests at the moment, sadly, but it still does apply.
It also, because extra magic hours are still a thing in Magic Kingdom. Yes?
Well, so no.
Well, no.
They
My
so they
data is so terrible. I'm so
So
sorry, everyone.
they do it in the morning. The thing about Magic Kingdom though that still applies to what you're talking about is the fireworks are not at park close.
Oh,
So
okay.
Epcot
Right.
Luminous is at 9 p.m., which is your Epcot close. So only if you've got deluxe hours, which are typically Mondays and Wednesdays, Epcot is usually on Mondays, then you have the ability to do that. But and sometimes with Phantasmic even too, if they've got two showings of Phantasmic, this would apply as well, depending on which showing you're going to. So you can keep that in mind. But really, the best parks to do this at would be Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios.
Okay. We're really calling attention to the former part of my former cast member tips. So I apologize, everyone. But the way that I see it in Magic Kingdom is that, like, if you know that you want to ride Buzz Lightyear one last time before you go, watch the fireworks from the Tomorrowland side of the castle.
Right.
Or if you want to ride Pirates afterwards, watch it from the Adventureland side of the castle. Like, make it easier on yourself. Just always be thinking 2 steps ahead. Your mind is noodling about things when you're waiting around anyways.
Yeah.
It's just something to consider. Make things easier on yourself is the through line, I think, in all of my tips.
Yes. Well, and I think too with Magic Kingdom, right? Like there are so many other places that you can also watch the fireworks.
And that
So
leads me to my 10th tip.
look at that. How'd I do that? It's like a segue. Tell
My
us about
10th tip.
these other places that we can watch the fireworks.
If you do not want to stand, but while you watch the fireworks, but you are still in the park, and I get it, not everybody is like super big into evening shows, I would highly recommend riding a ride that gives you a view of what's happening while you're on it. It makes the ride feel extra magical. In my opinion, it makes me feel like I'm in a Disney commercial because in the commercials, you always see somebody riding like
That's
Tiana's
so
and the
true.
fireworks are going over. And so whenever I get to do it, it's just like, I'm in a commercial. Toss. Uh, but the best places to do that in Magic Kingdom, I think, are Thunder Mountain and Tiana's from Adventureland. And then from Tomorrowland, the People Mover is probably my favorite in the whole park to watch things from the People Mover because you get a couple different angles as you go around. And if there's not a line, you might be able to ask the cast members to let you go again and you don't have to get off at all. And it's chef's kiss, wonderful. The Astro Orbiter is another location in Tomorrowland that allows you to view the fireworks while you're on them.
Yeah, Astro Orbiter's a little bit harder to time because the
Yeah.
line is a little wonky because you gotta go, like, up the elevator and everything. But even if you can be up on the platform at the top of Astro Orbiter, that's a good way to do it. So, yeah, that is something that I will say is super fun. Another place that I know that's not a ride, but if you can still see the fireworks from behind the castle. So, like, even if you're just, like, walking along the, I don't know what kind like, it's a bridge, but it's not a bridge in Adventureland, like, that
Mm.
outer rim by what will is currently Tom Sawyer Island, but will soon be Cars Land. You can still see the fireworks from over there. So, like, even if you just, like, find a wall to sit along and watch from that area, you can still see them. Same from, like, over by, like Dumbo and stuff like that, and over by Gaston's. Like, there's lots of areas back behind that you may not think about being able to see the fireworks from where you are, as long as you're okay with not seeing, like, the projections on the castle, obviously, is what something that we're talking about here, like, none of these places are you gonna be able to see those except for maybe a little bit from the People Mover as
Right,
you come
okay.
around the one corner.
Yeah.
But there are lots of other places that you can find that, if you're like, "I don't wanna ride a ride, but I don't wanna fight the crowd in the hub feels," there are lots of other places
Vote.
that you yeah. There are lots of other places that you can still see the fireworks.
Well, and especially for special events like parties, the same
Yeah,
thing applies where you won't be able to see the projection. But for those events, they do bigger fireworks and they shoot them off from additional locations. And so if
mhm,
you are behind the castle in where they will allow you to be in Fantasyland,
right.
it will feel like you are in the center of a circle and fireworks are going off around you. And it is great. I learned this on accident. We just were trying to get snacks and find somewhere to sit. And the evening show started and we were like, hey, this isn't so bad. I learned the same thing for the 4th of July event in Epcot because at the very end of the show, they shoot off more fireworks from the America Pavilion. And so I just happened to be watching, it was Illuminations from that point in time. And I was watching it from America. And then all of a sudden, the fireworks were literally right behind me. And it blew my mind. And I made friends watch it with me the year after. And they're like, why are we here? Why are you making us do this? I
Why
said,
are we here?
wait, trust the process,
Do you
trust the process. And then
do
it
you
went off and they
remember
were like, whoa. And I was like, I told you so. I
do you
told you.
remember the year that we figured out that you could the old 4th of July fireworks show at Epcot, you used to be able to see from the monorail platform?
Yes. And we
That
just
was
hung out and watched there. That
yeah.
was when I first moved down.
Yeah, because we had gone to the Polynesian because we weren't going to the parks that day. We had gone to the
Yeah.
Polynesian beach to watch the Magic Kingdom ones, and we just, like, hopped on the monorail and, like, we're like, "Let's go see what we can see at Epcot." Like, why not? We're here. And we stood on the monorail platform and looked past Spaceship Earth, and we could see all of the 4th of July fireworks from there too.
It was great. There's so many like little places like that where you'd be surprised about what you can hear from other places.
Yeah,
I was in the cast member parking lot in Hollywood Studios, and Studios isn't that far away from Epcot, and this
right.
was around the Christmas time. And so when I was walking out to my car, I could hear because it was a cold, windy night for Florida, that is, I could hear candlelight processional from the parking lot.
That's
And
crazy.
I had chills because I thought I was going crazy at first. I thought they were just like
Like,
the Haunted Mansion ghosts in the parking lot telling me about Christmas.
singing about Jesus.
And I'm familiar with the show because I was in the Candlelight Processional for a couple years on my college program. And so getting to hear the music just like usher me out to my vehicle was
Amazing.
surprise magic. I just would never have guessed that that could be something that you could hear from the length of distance that was between those two places.
Yeah, so moral of the story is look for the unique places to maybe catch the show if you're someone who now I will say a lot of these shows like you should see from the like standard viewing location probably at least once, right? Like
I agree.
it's worth it to be able to see. I am someone who, like, while I love this idea of, like, watching the fireworks from other places, I like the projections a lot on the castle. So, like, I just kinda grin and bear it and go, "Yep, if I wanna see the projections, I'm gonna have to go to the hub," or I'm gonna have to find a place to where I can sort of see what's going on. Um, but that being said, there are so many different places that you can find that are unique and special and, like, especially, like, all anything that's in park, that music is pumped throughout the entirety of the parks. Like, even if you're riding the People Mover, you will still hear the soundtrack to Happily Ever After, regardless of where you are. Now, granted, inside Space Mountain, you're not going to hear it as loudly as when you're outside of Space Mountain, but you get the idea.
It's lovely. I think that I have learned to do this because even as a guest, after I wasn't working for the parks anymore, we would usually spend 2 days in Magic Kingdom. And so the first day we would watch the projection. And then the second day, I was just like, well, I want to be able to hear it. And so we would find something to do where we could kind of multitask.
Yes, especially because ride wait times tend to dip at least a little bit during.
And it's hard to not want to take advantage of that when you've got a limited amount of time there.
Yeah. If you get lucky, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is another one that you can sometimes catch, kind of similar to Big Thunder Mountain. It really has to depend on the line on that one, because if your line is outside the cave, you're looking at way too long of a wait for that instance. But if you get in line and you're inside, just give yourself enough time.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. I think that's the end of our list. Yes, we did it. We made it. Hooray, huzzah, rejoicing.
I'm proud of myself for not going into too many unplanned stories because a girl loves to tell her stories. I have lots of them and I like sharing.
Yes. Well, the great thing is we're going to hear from you at least every month. So, we got that going for us. So plenty of time to share the appropriate stories as needed. That being said, do you have any other final thoughts, tips, advice from a cast member, former cast member perspective for visiting the Disney parks?
My final thoughts are really just cast members are great and I love them. And now that I'm not one anymore, I just want to make sure that they get all of their flowers. And I had a lot of ups and downs when I worked for the parks, but I would not trade that time for anything. I loved doing it. I loved doing the Disney College program. And if anybody has questions about that, I'd love to answer them. I think we'll have to do a whole episode maybe about the college program in the future.
That would be great.
Because it is such a unique opportunity. And I have used the skills that I learned at Disney in all of the other jobs that I've had, even if they have nothing to do with customer service. I think that every job is helped by having some Disney magic and some pixie dust inside of you. So
for sure. And I would say, as far as like tips visiting the park, right? Like, you can do all the research, you can have plan A, B, C, and D, but like ultimately, like, it's about the magic, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's magic from a cast member, which a lot of the times it is, let's be honest, right? They truly are the magic. Whether it's just a moment that you have with your family, whether it's getting to ride your favorite ride multiple times, whatever that magic may look like for you, like, that's what it's all about. So enjoy your time. Don't stress. Take our tips. Use them, don't use them. Whatever makes your trip what you want it to be.
And tell us.
Exactly. We would love that. But whatever makes your trip the most special for you, that's truly what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Love it. Well, let's talk briefly just about what is to come. So again, we are looking at this rotating schedule for Mom Street USA for 2025 and beyond. So next week, you've got solo me for the episode. And we are going to be talking about photos and character meet and greets. So I'm going to be giving you information and tips on PhotoPass and character meet and greets and kind of the best way to go about those. So that's what's coming next. And then from there, we will continue our rotation and we'll go back to visit our friends Duck and Jess on the next episode, and we'll go from there. So thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode of Mom Street USA. As always, if you've got questions or you want to hear more from Stevie about her experiences, you are always welcome to send us an email. We are momstreetusa@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on any of the social media platforms. We are at Mom Street USA on all of them. I would like to congratulate Stevie on finishing her first episode of Mom Street USA. Yay. Claps. Claps. Oh, wait, hold on. I have my... Oh, wait. But thank you guys so much for being here and joining us, and we will catch you next time on Mom Street USA. Bye, everyone.